It's time now for our regular Tech Talk with technologist, futurist speaker and author, Mathew Dickerson. How are you, Matt?
I'm very good, thanks, Wayne. How are you going this morning?
I'm going very well. I realise I call you Matthew and Matt intermittently. It doesn't really matter anyway, does it?
It doesn't matter. I got over that about 50 years ago, I reckon. It doesn't really matter what people call you.
That's right. Yeah, they'll just keep calling you it anyway. Now, how about this? I can't believe that people are flocking in the UK for cassettes of all things.
Cassettes. I mean, I actually find it interesting, the whole vinyl revolution that's been happening around the world. But I didn't think cassettes were ever going to make a bit of a comeback, but they are. 65,000 cassettes have been bought so far in 2020 in the UK, and this is huge compared to, say, last year. Basically, it's double the figure from 2019 and more than the entire sales figures from 2018. So they're making a resurgence, and it's not old. I originally thought it might have been some old music, but people like Lady Gaga are releasing cassette tapes. I mean, cassette tapes would have been gone by the time Lady Gaga was even born, but she's releasing her latest studio album, Chromatica, is out on cassette in the UK. I just find this incredible.
Is it a retro type thing that people are looking for?
I think it's a memorabilia thing, and one of the things that I did when I read the article, one of the things that I looked at was why people would choose cassettes. Now, cassettes obviously are not as good quality as, say, vinyl or even CDs or streaming, but a lot of it talked about that whole memorabilia, and people like to have something physical. So when you're listening to a music online or streaming, then there's nothing to sit on your shelf. There's nothing physical that you see. It's all contained somewhere out there. Whereas the idea of sitting something on your shelf, be it a cassette or a vinyl record, I think there's a certain amount of appeal in that. What's really interesting is that people are buying cassette players. I don't know if they're buying Walkmans or a more traditional deck that you put in your home, but they're not using them. But they want something in there to show that, well, if I wanted to, I could pick up that cassette that I bought and I could put it in that cassette deck, but I don't want to wreck the cassette. So it's a bit like people that collect toys. They don't want to take them out of the package and play with them. They just want to look at them.
Well, that's funny. But we had a rule in radio for many years when cassettes came out. You never use cassettes on air. You use vinyl, and the vinyl goes onto a cart, and that's it.
Yeah, right.
So we weren't allowed to use them.
And that was due to the quality, I assume?
Yeah, the quality. But vinyl has a nice sound, doesn't it?
Well, people talk about that, and I must admit I'm not enough of an audiophile to pick the difference between, say, CDs and vinyl. Or you know, if you had me sit down with a taste test as such and said, listen to online, listen to CD, listen to vinyl, I reckon I'd say they're all about the same.
Yeah. Well, there is a distinct difference for all the music, aficionados, and I'm certainly not one of them, but they're a little bit softer, but, you only need one scratch and it goes clunk, clunk, clunk. And I've got plenty of old in fact, I've got rid of them LPs that testified to that,
Yep.
Teenage parties and so forth. Oops.
And what's interesting too is people listen to so much music in their car, so they want this perfect sound, and they spend a lot of money on the car stereo, and then they sit on the open road at 100 k's an hour, and you've got all the road noise in the background, and you lose half of that sound quality.
That's right. Something's got to be done, doesn't it? And we're talking Tech Talk with Mathew Dickerson. And Matthew, interesting, the stoush between the UK and Huawei. Ooh, it's all happening, isn't it?
It is all happening, and it's something where if you listen to the Americans, and Trump in particular, then they would tell you that it's all because that they're backing the US. But their own security advisors in the UK have had a good look at Huawei, and they are worried about Huawei controlling, and I think that's the important part here, not just putting a few components in a network, not just selling a few little minor bits that might be used here and there, but when they get to the point where they control a mobile phone network, in particular the 5G network as it's the newest one being rolled out, then I think that's where the security concerns are, that you've got a Chinese company controlling a network, a mobile phone network in a foreign country, and just the potential for them to listen in on every conversation. Obviously, there's no hard evidence that that's happening, but there's enough concern from countries, including Australia, that Huawei is being blocked out of many countries around the world.
How do you think the Chinese are reacting and will react in the future?
How do the Chinese ever react about anything that happens that might impact those? Not very well. So basically the Chinese government is almost having a call to arms for various companies not to invest in the UK at the moment. They're saying to Chinese companies, don't go and spend money there. They don't have any confidence or faith in us, so why would they take our money? So the reaction so far has been not very pleasant, and I suspect that will continue. And we've seen that reaction everywhere around the world. I mean, we see it in Australia at the moment with universities, for example, with Chinese students. So the Chinese government doesn't take well to any negativity at all.
But it's not working for them. It's backfiring because the Chinese people are saying, well, I want to go to an Australian uni. I want to buy their barley or whatever, their beef, and sales continue, don't they?
Dare I say it, far from me to be a political commentator here, but I dare say that those comments that we hear are in the minority, because having visited China, I realise that the only way that China works with 1.3 billion people is for people to be very compliant. So when the government speaks, the vast majority will listen to them, and we see a few of those examples that you've given there, but the vast majority will say we'll fall in line with our government because it's not worth the ramifications if we don't.
Yeah, but if their economy shrinks, something will happen, won't it?
It may well do. You're right, but at the moment, from a technology perspective, look, Huawei is certainly on the outer from a number of networks around the world. Even their individual mobiles, some people are concerned about buying their mobile phones as well, which the Huawei phones are quite a good phone, and they've got quite good features at quite reasonable prices. But the individuals are also being put off buying their individual phones.
So do you think they'll target Africa and other parts of the world, the undeveloped world?
Well, the logic would be that Huawei
Which they are anyway.
They are, but Huawei seem to be able to produce cheaper networks. So any company that's trying to develop their network, they may say, well, we'll go with Huawei anyway. I mean, one of the reasons the TPG Vodafone merger went ahead, if you look back through the whole history of that, was that TPG was originally going to build the fourth mobile network in Australia. Once Huawei was banned from Australian shores, then TPG said we now can't afford to build that network, so the merger looks like a better option. So you've got, I suppose, the cost factor there against the political factor.
Yeah. Speaking with Matt Dickerson, and of course this is Tech Talk, and Matt is a technologist, futurist, speaker and author. Now, solar renewable project, a big one for North Queensland, developers say, $600 million worth. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one because so many people talk about solar, oh, this is great, but gee, the sun doesn't shine at night is always the standard argument put forward. And so this particular project, rather than just being what I'd call a traditional solar project where you put a bunch of solar panels around, you produce power and put that into the grid, what they're doing is they're saying we're not going to produce all of our power from solar. We're going to produce 85% of our energy from solar. But in addition to the solar, we've also got some battery backup, and we've also got some gas-fired turbines that essentially will be able to make sure we can keep producing power throughout the day and throughout the night by combining the batteries and the gas turbines. So essentially, it's actually quite a good concept where you take away a lot of that negativity, and sure, you're still producing 15% of your power in other methods, but you're getting 85% of your power from a renewable source. So I don't mind the concept. Ultimately, I think we'll get to the point where we will have all our power produced by renewables, whether that be wind or solar or other methods that will come forward. But in the meantime, I think this is a really good concept.
Yeah, but they're saying it will be a way off until coal is completely phased out of any backup power or stability for the grid using coal power. They're saying it'll be a while off. Yeah.
You can hear it here first, Wayne. On 2WEB, I actually did some graphing about the production of solar and the production of renewables in general, if you like. And I actually graphed it out and made some estimations and put my futurist hat on. And I've got the year as 2026. So give me a phone call at the end of 2026. That's the year that, in my belief, we will actually change over from 50% or more than our power produced by renewables will change over in that year. So at the moment, we're obviously well below 50%, but I think it'll tick over. Now, sure, coal will still be a part of that mix there, but it's certainly declining fairly quickly.
But worldwide, it doesn't seem to be. Some of the research that I've looked at, and I'm no expert at all, and you're the technologist, so they're saying that the developing countries will need coal, good or cleaner coal anyway, from us.
Yeah, look, we'll certainly, so two parts to it, sorry, Wayne. Production of our power here in this nation, coal will be a lesser and lesser part of the mix as we go forward. I'd say 2026 will be the time I think that renewables will tick over to 50%. Around the world a bit different, and the export of our coal around the world will still be important for a few years to come yet. So I'm not predicting that will drop off by the year 2026, but it certainly is declining slowly, maybe not as fast as some people would like, but it's certainly declining around the world.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We could talk about this forever and a day, but we haven't got time. And thanks again for your time, Matt.
Just briefly on that last one, sorry, Wayne. The significant part of that, I thought, was when the announcement was made. One of the parts of the announcement was that where they're locating this particular solar plant near Mount Isa, they mentioned was the other side of the Glencore operation, and I thought that was significant that they actually mentioned a coal operation as part of this overall project.
Wow, very interesting. Yeah, interesting mix. Thanks again, Matt Dickerson, for his regular tech talk, and look forward to catching up with you next week.
Sounds great, Wayne. Thanks, mate.
And you're listening to Outback Mornings.